What are your three biggest suggestions for getting through the holidays without gaining a ton of weight?
Suggestion number one has a little bit to do with pre-gaming, where if you look at holidays past or even just social gatherings past to see if you use these times as permission, you give yourself permission to deviate from what you would do any other time of the year. I can understand from a ritualistic standpoint that this time of year you eat different foods, and this time of year you spend time with different people, and whether or not you use that to give yourself permission to overdo things seems like a great place to start as far as pre-gaming ways to prevent excessive weight gain, or weight gain at all for that matter. Secondarily, you can ask the question of, well, do I use this to give myself permission to overdo it? And do I spend time with other people who give themselves permission to overdo it? And that also raises the likelihood that I will then comply and follow along with what they do. A lot of this has to do with the social, ritualistic sort of nature of holiday gatherings, where people give themselves permission to overdo many things, and they also encourage other people to overdo things as well. So point number one amounts to, do I give myself permission to overdo it during these times? And if so, how do I give myself permission to overdo it? Secondarily, we ask the question, well, of the people that I spend time with during the holidays, do they give themselves permission to overdo it? And do they also encourage me to overdo things during the holidays? And if so, that gives a great opportunity to have discussions with some of the people that you do spend the holiday season with, so that people know what you want to accomplish and they can choose whether to encourage you to do the things that you want to do. So this has less to do with guilt and shame and restricting yourself and all these other sort of gnarly things, and just kind of sticking to the facts and staying honest with yourself of, well, do I give myself permission to do it? Do I hang out with people that give me permission to do it and encourage me to do it? Or maybe make me feel a little bad if I try to stay reasonable during this time of year? And that opens up some interesting questions to audit relationships during these times of year, or maybe just the relationship in general. And thirdly, has a lot to do with probably something to do with the leftover component and food wastage. And this also kind of goes along the lines with the pre-gaming too. A lot of people say, well, Thanksgiving is coming up, and so they start getting into a festive holiday mood, or Christmas or whatever, and they start sort of deviating from their normal fitness, health, diet, exercise sorts of rituals because Thanksgiving is coming next week.
I'm cooking for a dinner party!
Or something of that nature, and you start relaxing again because maybe other people around you start relaxing and other people encourage you to get into the festive mood. You see things popping up at work. You see sales going on with foods different from what you would normally get. And understanding that those things will happen ahead of time allows you to, again, have the conversation with yourself of, well, if this goes on sale ahead of time or after, do I then give myself permission to overdo it because it only comes out this time of year? Or once the large meal got prepared by you, your family, etc., after the fact, do you then have a sort of issue with food wastage where you do want to essentially eat it all over the course of the next few days or weeks so it doesn't go bad, for instance? And in situations like this, you can create doggy bags for other people. You can, oh my goodness, actually prepare enough food that everybody can have a couple of servings, and actually audit how many people do I have coming over? How much food does it really take to feed this many people, and do I have to make food for 10 times that amount? And this may sound different or strange to some people, and I would say a lot of people exist in a different sort of health and fitness situation, and that can make it difficult for all parties sometimes. So at the same time, if you go visit somebody else's house during this time of year, you can ask yourself the same questions and realize, like, okay, we have 10 people at this house and we have enough food for 50 people. Does that make a whole lot of sense? And from a food wastage standpoint, a lot of people might say they want to eat it to prevent waste, and I kind of ask the question, well, you waste the food by making food for 50 people when 10 people come over. So I see the food as getting wasted either way. It just, you choose whether or not you waste it in your own body. So this opens up another sort of question of I guess home economics perhaps, or just economics in general and the environment, etc., etc. So really, I like to focus on permission. All these points, they focus around permission. How do you give yourself permission to overdo it or not before the holiday? How do you give yourself permission to overdo it or not during the holiday? And how do you give yourself permission to overdo it or not after the holiday? So for those 3 tips, look at before, during, and after and how you give yourself permission. You can have a legitimate plan with yourself and the interactions you have with the people during the holiday so that you can have as much fun as humanly possible, still participate, and come out the other end healthier than when you started.